the capacitor is in my mind a lot like motivation, right? And a lot of people try to use motivation as what runs the whole thing, and it can't be that. It
Mhm.
is a quick burst of energy to get you going. What keeps that sustained energy going is consistent effort.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tactical Agents Podcast. We are the Tactical Agents. I'm Mike Edwards, and this is Chris Fisher. We hope you're doing well. And if you don't know, as the Tactical Agents, we are the founders of the 10-7 Project, and it's on mission. We are on mission to help 10,000, it's a lot of people, cops, veterans, public safety professionals, and you know what? And their supporters to change their lives or to level up their real estate business, change it through the real estate. I don't know. I got to work on that statement. I feel like it
Yeah,
needs a little
it
refining.
needs a little polish.
Got to polish that up. We'll get there, but that hasn't stopped us. We are on our team across the country. We are over 175 agents strong right now, I think, right?
Yep.
And that does
Yep.
not
Yep. Yep.
include those who are or have done coaching with us or have signed up to go through the Tactical Agent Academy, or just that we've influenced or coached in general. You could be one of them. If you want to know more, go to 107 project.com and find out more, and we'll connect with you and help you out. In the meantime,
Yeah.
we're back for another episode, and today we want to talk to you, I guess, I guess the topic is procrastination on some level, but it's something that I've been reminded of, and I've been reminded of it because it's been impacting me in my real life and my real business. And I don't know that you ever become impervious to this. Obviously not, because here I am. Um, and that is the difference between being really good at something and the difference between being remarkable at that thing. I believe is the willingness to do the things that you know, not things that you don't know. Do the things that you know you need to do, regardless of how you feel. I, I think that is like procrastination. There's probably a lot of different causes, and maybe we'll explore that depending on how much time we have here. We try to keep these podcasts to 20-ish minutes or a little bit less, so we'll see where we go. I am feeling the effects of letting moments, hours, days, or weeks go by to not do the things that I know that I'm supposed to do because I just don't feel like doing them. And it doesn't take very long of doing that until you are like, oh man, I'm really off track right now.
Right.
All right. I'm feeling that right now. And so like, that's a pretty full disclosure, right? Because we're here saying, hey, we can help you, we can teach you. And what I am learning as a coach is that you can't let your guard down. You can't just get comfortable in that role and then expect that your business is just going to like magically take care of itself. You can't do that. This doesn't work. I'm feeling that because I've been lax there. I've been putting things off that I just don't feel like doing. I don't know. What about you, Chris?
Well, I think I'm probably in the same boat as you. You and I, we have such a similar outlook on most things. And one of our biggest flaws, I think, is the ability for us to get bored. And,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and boredom tends to lead both of us to look for other things that interest us and
Mm-hmm.
can distract us.
Yep.
And, um, the fact of the matter is, like, it's to our detriment a lot of the time, even though it gives us a lot of experience and a lot of things and allows us to feel fulfilled in chasing the next thing. We pay a price for not focusing and drilling down and putting 100% effort and commitment into things that we already know work because we get
Mhm.
bored with them because we already know how to do them.
Yep.
And I think both of us fall into that trap.
Yeah, for sure. I saw a quote and I shared it with you the other day actually from a guy named Tom Worth. And he said 10 units of effort spent on one thing will result in exponentially greater growth than 1 unit of effort spent on 10 things. And I'm like,
Yes.
it just hit me so hard. And it's like been since that moment that I've really been kind of like re-grappling with like, all right, what am I really doing here? All right. Like what
Mhm.
what am I really doing here? And everyone kind of needs to pick their one thing and go all in on that thing. Alex Hormozy has a great video that if I'm sure I can find it and link it in the show notes here as well because that was really influential on me and I revisited that again too where he's talking about people like us who have a ton of interests. They they tend to want to fill up a bunch of buckets, but if the buckets have holes in it, you're not maximizing each bucket. Go ahead and have a lot of buckets, but you need to make sure that they're overflowing and there's no holes in each one and build them in sequence. Like
Right.
focus so that you can develop the buckets. Yes, you can have your hand in a bunch of different verticals and in a bunch of different things, but you got to focus on one. Now, I recognize for most people who are listening to this podcast, the focus here is our real estate business. So, I guess it's probably really beneficial if we kind of zero in on our real estate business. And this really kind of ties into last week's episode, some of the lies that real estate agents tell themselves. And really, this is like a little bit of a further step in exploring this idea that busyness equals productivity. It
Right.
like where I'm doing busy work. You have all these different things you can be doing in your real estate business, and we could tend to lean toward doing the easiest things, the low hanging fruit that make us feel like we've done something, and then we can justify or we explain away why our business is slowing down or not where we want it to be by saying, well, I did all these other things. But we know at the end of the day, there's certain things in our businesses that are income producing activities. And for us, that's not sales scripts. That's not cold calling, and it's not door knocking or sending out postcards. It's doing the work of building relationships and investing in those relationships. But as it turns out, even though that is a more enjoyable way, it's still work. it's
Mhm.
still it's still, you know, you gotta actually make the calls. You actually have to drop by. You actually have to get the gifts. You actually have to do the things, like involved in a real estate transaction. You still gotta get things done and going all in and doing the things when you don't feel like it is really what makes the difference. So, and we didn't prepare for this conversation at all. I
No.
literally told Chris like, "Hey, this is what's on kind of like what's on my mind and what I'm experiencing. Let's talk about it." So, in the next few minutes, let's do a little self-diagnostic work in terms of okay, how do you when you recognize that this is how you're feeling and your business is slugging away slowly, or it's dipping, it's dropping, and you need to pick it up. And you're taking ownership and responsibility for this. You're not blaming somebody else. You're not blaming the market and all this other nonsense, which is all nonsense. Uh, you are taking ownership in this. How do you get yourself back on track? I think that's where the practical side of this. Recognize the problem is one thing, acknowledging it is one thing. How do you get back to being like, all right, I'm in, I'm engaged and I'm doing the things?
Well, a couple weeks ago, I wrote something about the function of a capacitor in an air conditioning system. Right, the big, you know, it stores electricity and so that it gives it a burst of energy in the beginning and gets the fan spinning. Right, that's
Mhm.
what a capacitor's for. And if you've ever owned a home and you've had to replace one of those, you know that it costs like 300 or 400 bucks to have it replaced, or you can go to the hardware store and get it for $15 and do it yourself in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other thing. Um, but the capacitor is in my mind a lot like motivation, right? And a lot of people try to use motivation as what runs the whole thing, and it can't be that. It
Mhm.
is a quick burst of energy to get you going. So what keeps that sustained energy going is consistent effort, right? And this is something we all know. It's not a new concept, but um, consistency is key.
Mhm.
So when you're in a rut like this, in general, you have to commit to the consistency, and you have to force yourself to do what you need to do to get rolling and build that routine back and get it to where it's becoming second nature again, and get that train rolling down the tracks. And it's really just the consistency and routine, I think, that and the commitment to do it when you don't feel like it.
Yeah, motivation comes and goes. This idea of discipline and consistency is what we need, and back you got to get back to it. So I feel like for me, it's always good when I recognize that I'm feeling this way, like this is, and I'm looking around at my business and going like, man, I acknowledge that I am procrastinating on things that should be getting done, and I'm making excuses for why I'm not doing those things. When that happens, I find it's best to go right back to basics, like, and reorient myself around my why, and then refresh my goals. Because if that's, I think, a huge piece for me is when I refresh my goals, I sometimes realize that maybe the reason that I'm not doing the things that I I ought to be doing is because I have put a goal out there that I'm not really attached to. That there's not a lot of deep meaning to it. There's not a lot of why. It's not really actually connected to a compelling vision for my life. And so I lose the focus on it because maybe it's something that I thought that I wanted, but maybe I really don't. Is it, am I really going after this thing? Do I really want it? Because the reality is we always do. We're always taking action in a way that reflects what we really want.
Hmm.
So it's like, well, what you really want is maybe money for nothing. You want something for nothing, right? So that's a really big problem because that's literally not how the universe operates. Like
Right.
that's not like so now what you really want is incongruent with reality. And I think so many people get stuck there.
Yeah, and I find that that happens to me a lot when I tie my goals to money,
Mhm.
um, because I don't think money really drives me
Mhm.
as much as I may want it to sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, so I think when I tie my goals to how much money I'm making, or the things I can buy, or the stuff like that, it just it doesn't hold real value. And
Mhm.
then there's a lot of, what is this really for? You know?
Yeah.
Um, so I think you're onto something there with, refreshing your goals and tying it to something that actually has meaning to you.
Yeah, for sure. Like what are the I want to make this goes back to setting SWOT goals. We have an episode on that.
Mhm.
So a couple of good episodes to go back and refresh. on, if you're following the show, is go back and look at our information on SWOT goals, and then on why motivation isn't enough, right? Like discipline is the key. And part of that is like the same thing happens when we talk about like fitness goals. Well, I want to lose weight. Well, why do you want to lose weight? Because I want to feel better. Okay, well, why do you want to feel better? You have to go deeper. You have to connect the direction of your life with something deeper. It has to be more significant. And when we say finding your why, we're not talking about just rah motivation. We're talking about something that is deep, a deep emotional level that will actually really result in doing the things that you need to do because you really want it, not because it's just a inspirational, but because it's almost necessary to fulfill for your deepest desires. And that's where
Right.
things need to get planted. And same thing is true. And I'm guilty of this too. I'm guilty of allowing money to be some kind of weird carrot that
Mhm.
is not, it's just not necessary, right? Like money is the byproduct of what it is that you're really going after. And
Mhm.
so she's like, well, I want to make a quarter million a year. Well, why? Why do you want to make $250,000 a year? Well, because I want to be able to do more things with my family. Oh, okay. Well, why do you want to be able to do more? What kind of things do you want to do with your family that you can't do now? That 250,000 will give you. I want to spend more time with them. Okay, are you spending time with them now? What kind of time are you spending? What would change with $250,000? You may realize, like, wow, really, I only want to make 150,000. Like,
Right.
I could do the things that I want to do that make us happy, you know. And everyone is going to be different. So, uh, I've been telling people this a lot that start out in the project or coaching with us is like, don't just assume that money is the goal. Like you can't make money the goal. It won't work, right? Because money in and of itself doesn't accomplish anything for you.
Right.
So it's not that money's bad. Money is a tool. Money
Yeah.
money is a means of accomplishing certain things that you might not otherwise be able to accomplish. But there's a lot that you can have right now. Like money, if you want to be fit, well, I don't have enough money for a gym. Money doesn't stop you from dropping down and doing 100 burpees right now. Like
Right.
money's not the obstacle there. Oh, I want to be able to take my wife on trips. Yeah, but money's not stopping you from going for a walk with your wife tonight, right? Like you can
Right.
go for a walk with, you can connect tonight. And dude, if you've ever had kids, you know that you spend money on a trip or on gifts, and all of a sudden, your kid is playing with a freaking cardboard box and is imagining himself being a warrior with a stick in one hand as a sword and a cardboard box as a shield in the other. Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh, do I need to take my kid to Disney for that? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many
Mhm.
things that we think
Yeah.
that money is
I
going to do for us, and it's not that at all.
Right. Like, I could tell you there was a moment when I realized with my son, I've got a 3-year-old son, and I realized that, I wanted to take, our kids to Disney World. I wanted to go on all these trips, do all these things. And he and I were like just wrestling one day, and he was giggling, having the time of his life. Like, I don't, I'm 90% sure that I have never seen him have more fun than we had just wrestling on the floor of our house. Right. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I could go spend $10,000 to take him to Disney, but he's not going to have more fun. He's not going to have any more memories than when I think about my childhood, I remember wrestling with my dad on the floor or my uncles and, going out in the woods and doing fun things like, so money's a problem solver, right? Like in the sense that I have this problem, I have this thing that I want to accomplish, I have this thing that needs to get done. Money provides you an avenue to do it, but it's not the only avenue for a lot of times.
Yeah. So reframing your goals, revisiting your goals is certainly one way to get back on track, focusing on the things that you know that you need to do when you don't feel like it. Your feelings are kind of like a barometer. You can't be led around by them, but they indicate things. So,
Mhm.
but that is really what separates the men from the boys, I think, when it comes to not just real estate, but in all things, is like, are you willing to do the necessary work when you don't feel like it? Because
Right.
consistency, like, get back to consistency. And so you take those reframe goals and work them back into, say, like, if this is really where I want to be and it's connected at a, you need to check yourself to make sure that those goals are connected to you at a deep emotional level, because what we feel will be important. But then when we don't feel as strong about it, or we don't feel
Mhm.
like it, it's that sense of consistency that's going to make the difference. It's going to keep bridging the gaps between what we want and where we're at. And it's
Yeah.
consistency that will make all the difference in the world. And it doesn't take, and this is part of the problem, is like, when I recognize this in the past, my response is to try to do some really big push. But it's
Mhm.
not the really big pushes that make the difference. It's the
No.
small incremental movements that, while you do a big push and then you don't do anything for a while, and then you do a big push again and you make some progress. But then you look over and the guy that was just doing the little things and never stopped doing the little things is like further ahead. And you're like,
Right.
dang it, I could have been so much further
Yeah.
if I just would have been doing the little things over enough time. So reframe those goals, step it back into, what does that look like into your calendar? A goal that cannot be translated into an action every day in your calendar is useless. It's useless. It
Well,
has to
and
come back.
the goal too is all that's the carrot, right? Like the goal, the things you want to accomplish. There should also be a stick, right, associated with getting back to it. And just think about what it's going to cost you if you don't, right? Like, how are you going to hurt your family if you continue on the path you're on and not doing the things that you need to do? How are you going to hurt yourself? How are you going to impact their future and yours? So there's also that consideration too. And I know we're running out of time, so I won't expand on it too much, but that's another consideration.
Well, just know, guys, that if you're feeling like, man, I should be somewhere better in my business, I should be further along, I could be further along, I haven't been feeling it lately, you're not alone. You're really not. It's going, and I don't think that anyone ever escapes getting to that point, because I think for everyone, you you think you know where you want to be, and then maybe you get there and you're like, no, this isn't exactly it, and you're constantly making progress. And that's why it's so much more important to the kind of person you are, the kind of values that you have in business, the direction you're going, more than it is the destination, more than it is this termination point, this end thing. Like, you'll always need to push yourself to the next thing. You always need to keep moving, and it'll be the kind of values, the kind of person, the kind of character you want to develop that's going to be far more weighty and memorable for your life, and for the influence that you want to have on others and your family. That is going to leave a greater impression than just, I don't know, arbitrary goals and things like
Yeah.
that. So, uh, obviously, we didn't have like a 3-point plan or anything like that. But hopefully, hearing where we're at and kind of how we kind of speak to ourselves and coach ourselves through some of this stuff is beneficial for you. You kind of like, this is like being a fly on the wall, I guess. Um, we've grown businesses and had successes and failures, and this is just part of the process. And you get to hear it and learn from it. And we want to hear from you. Hopefully, it's helping. What other questions does this elicit for you? Drop them in the comments. If you're getting value from this, please subscribe wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube if we earn that from you. And if you want to know more about our project or how you can work with us, go to 107project.com, TEN, the number 7project.com, and we will see you in the next episode.